All right, welcome to another edition of the Hardwood Huddle. We're back.
Woo!
Woo-hoo! Backsportspage.com presents Hardwood Huddle. That man right there, he is the basketball master. That's right, no more Sith Lord.
Now, actually, tonight, in honor of the ongoing trial and such, we're doing a Johnny Depp tribute, so I'll be the pirate tonight.
Okay. Bill Ingram, ladies and gentlemen, it's good to have you back, buddy. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's been too long.
Yeah, it's been too long. Last time we spoke, it was the first round of the playoffs. We're now in the conference finals. Whoops.
And you have all these kids now, and I don't know.
Yeah, it's a damn shame life gets in the way, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah. Listen, it happens to the best of us. But, we are here. We are live. Follow the show on backsportspage.com. Hardwood Huddle. We are right now. I think we're doing about 2 shows a month, and I think that's okay. I think we're doing our part. We're contributing, and we're gonna pick it up a little bit here before we jump into the playoffs. We have Jared Zero, our Boston affiliate, who handles Patriots, everything Celtics for us. Before we jump to him, let's really quickly catch up on some of the news that's been going on. Mike Brown officially hired by the Sacramento Kings as their new head coach.
The next ex-head coach.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Mike Brown has already lost his job with the Sacramento Kings. He's only been there for 3 days.
The coach. It's just that, it's the Sacramento Kings.
It's the Sacramento Kings, and we just know that doesn't really last long. We'll dive more into that. Listen, Bill, we haven't had a real chance to talk about what happened during the second round of the playoffs with the Memphis Grizzlies, the Golden State Warriors. That series was very physical, very competitive. Also wanted to touch base with you on Philadelphia and Miami. So let's start there. Because I know you had your annual James Harden be eliminated from the playoff day.
Right, that was a big party. That was pop the popcorn. Yes.
And it usually happens the same time every year, which is usually the funny thing.
Chris Paul out of Houston. Yeah, it's been a very steady downhill spiral for him ever since.
Yeah, I'm not a huge. I try to defend James Harden. You know that. I don't hate the guy.
Why don't Bill, I just don't want him on my team. He's a cancer.
I'm just more laughing how you're just like, yeah, I don't hate the guy. You're like, I do. Like, you made it seem so innocent the way you just said it. Your opinion, what moves can the Philadelphia 76ers actually make at this point?
Well, that's the problem, right? Because you gave up everything you could possibly give up and still have even an outside shot at being competitive to get James Harden. And now he could walk away, which honestly, if you're Philly, as I was watching the first round, I keep thinking, man, what if they had Steph Curry over there and Andre Drummond down there? And they gave up and we talked about it at the time with Nets Insider. They gave up so much to get him, and it was an all or nothing kind of deal. And then when James Harden plays the way he played in the first round, which is not, honestly, there was nothing particularly surprising about it, then you're just screwed. And granted, Embiid had the eye injury and he was hobbled and, played through that the last couple of games. But James Harden is just not the player. There's a few reasons for that, right? First of all, there have been 2 rule changes that strongly, I think they targeted him. You could call these the James Harden rules, because they don't call when you initiate contact on a shot, that used to be a foul, and he'd live at the free throw line because he was great at it. Kevin Durant was great at it.
Oh, he was the king of that.
He was the king. I think he invented that particular up under arms as you shoot. Now it's a foul. And they stopped calling it that way. So that hurt James Harden in particular. Kevin adjusted, no problem for Durant. He's phenomenal. The other thing was the travel, the Euro step where you could dribble once and take 7 steps and be at the rim. That wasn't allowed anymore. And if you look at Harden's stats, there was a precipitous fall off as a result of that. And I firmly believe his shall we say, off the court habits. When you're a young player, there's a lot of things that you can do and still play at an elite level. If you're an elite player, Iverson played through ungodly amounts of beer. Like he just kept drinking and if he'd ever been sober, imagine how good he would have been. But Harden has reached that point that we all reach, which is you're no longer able to just do whatever the hell you want the night before a game and show up and be a superstar player. Now there are some changes that have to take place, and I don't know if he's mature enough, even at his age, you would think. I don't know if he's mature enough to be self-analytical and figure out, hey, the strip clubs and the drinking and the partying and being 20 pounds overweight and all that stuff, you just can't play at an elite level anymore. And it's amazing that he did in the first place. So there are a number of factors that combined to create the downfall of James Harden, and he brought the rest of the Sixers with him, obviously.
Yeah, and not only that, too, here's the other thing. This trade was supposed to be the big savior for Philadelphia, right? Like, it was the time where they got the second star finally to go with them. You know what I mean? It was just one of those things that I really do think, like, they had to move Ben Simmons because they were not going to get anything. I don't say they're not going to get anything of value, but the longer they held on to them, the longer, even if they would have sat out the whole entire season for Philadelphia, it wouldn't have ended well for Simmons in Philadelphia anyway. So let's say if he got back on the court for Philadelphia, that crowd would have destroyed him.
Yep.
He
has an outside being a hero in Brooklyn, but in Philly, no way. You had to move for sure.
You had to move him, and the Nets took the bait. And again, we had this discussion. I'm never one to say anything negative about someone who's got anything mental health. So Ben, whatever is going on with Ben is going on with Ben. But you and I both say it's one thing to have mental health issues. It's another thing to sit on the bench looking like a Christmas tree and drawing that much attention to yourself. And it was a really, really, really bad look for him. So, and that's something that he has to do.
It was really bad, that suit.
It's the worst suit ever.
Oh my God. Who? Like, really? The thing about that is he did wind up needing back surgery, which I thought, okay, this was not the Kawhi Leonard or Kyrie Irving where you're not really sure if there's an injury or it's all here. With Ben, there was a back injury. Now, should he have had that back surgery weeks and months earlier? You can debate that. But here's the thing. If you're Ben Simmons and you have the surgery and you're healthy, which he should be by the timeline, in time for spring training. My brain's already on Astros baseball.
Yeah, I was supposed to say he's trying out for the Astros next week. It's gonna be great.
We're up 2-1, hosting the Rangers right now. For those who are keeping score, no. But when you get ready for preseason, if he's healthy, and you have a team, and pray to God Kyrie Irving's not on that team anymore. But Kevin Durant has someone who he can lean on defensively. You have a legit point guard who will actually play the majority of your games and not get confused about weird things and suddenly have to miss games. Then he could be a huge part. I really think Brooklyn could be an Eastern Conference contender next year. But so much of that depends on two things. Is Ben Simmons healthy and mentally healthy, not just physically? And how long can Kevin Durant play? Because, my God, he misses so many games. And when he plays, he's amazing. But have we gotten to a point where he's like LeBron? He's only going to give you 50 or 60 games.
Well, yeah, and that's the common thread. And who's been the starting of that trend? Anthony Davis, which goes on to –
But he never did. He was never going to give you – he was never going to give you more than that.
Never. Look, I have been a proponent of, if you can't handle an 82-game season, I think it's time for you to check your ability at the door. If Jordan can do it on one leg, y'all can do it. That's my.
We've talked about this many times on this show. It's a different era. Dominique Wilkins, we talked to him about this when we had him on the podcast. There was a game where he got carried off the court in a stretcher in the first half, on a stretcher. And he came back and scored 25 in the second half, and they won that game, the Hawks. That was a different era where guys played through injuries. You didn't have all this, tendonitis in his left pinky, so he's going to miss 10 games. You didn't have that. Now, the slightest little injury causes a guy to miss half the season, and it's just ridiculous. It makes it, in many ways, the modern NBA is unwatchable, and that's one of the primary ways is because no one plays through injuries anymore. And it's crazy. If you're only going to play 60 games, look, Europe, China, they all have shorter seasons.
I agree. I agree. I agree 110%. Real quick, let's jump into that Memphis Golden State situation. Or should we say the heavyweight battle between Golden State and Memphis? Because that's pretty much what it was, right? Like,
I got to tell you, Ja Morant, I mean, he's amazing. Let's not, there's no way to slant Ja Morant, the player that he's becoming. I can only imagine 2 to 3 years from now, the player that he's going to be. But when you talk about BJ Bickerstaff and the coaching job that he has done there and the number of guys, when you look at how many games Ja Morant, your star player, your point guard, the most important player on the team, misses, and they still won so many games during the regular season, and in the playoffs they were still extremely competitive even with him out. I think the future for the Memphis Grizzlies is astoundingly bright. They're going to be an incredible team to watch for years to come.
I think they're not really going anywhere. I know we said this about the Utah Jazz over the last couple seasons, and they sort of fell flat, and now Donovan Mitchell has slowly, quietly asked for a trade. Can you please send me to New York so I can be with my family? And they're like, we don't want Mitchell Robinson. So, that's the so that's how they pretty much did it.
The only solution for Utah, and we've talked about this a million times, and I told their front office guys a million times, you got to fire the coach. When you have a roster that's that complete and that deep and can do so many things well, and they're just not putting the effort forward, you can't make enough moves to fix that. You need a coaching change. Quinn Snyder's a great coach. No, this is not about Quinn Snyder. It's really not. The issue is when you have one coach with a team for a prolonged period of time. Rick Carlisle knew this with Dallas. He knew there was talent here in Dallas, but he also knew that his voice was no longer resonating with the younger guys who were there, Luka Doncic and everybody else. His voice had become white noise, and that happens with the best coaches. The only two coaches I can think of it never happened with, Greg Popovich and Jerry Sloan. Never happened with them. But
and you can throw Eric Spoelstra in there too, by the way.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, great example. Eric Spoelstra. They still listen no matter who's there, the young guys, the veterans, they all respect him. They all listen. They all take his notes and turn things around and play harder the next game when something goes wrong. That's not the case. In Utah, it has gone so far off the rails that you have only one player on the entire team that is even willing to play defense. And I'm sorry, and Rudy Gobert, look, if I'm drafting a team, he can play on my team any day because he can guard all 5 positions. He's an astounding defender. But if only one guy is committed to playing defense, it's not going to work.
No.
So then you have a bunch of selfish plays. And they won't give him the ball. Like, there's so many issues in Utah that you have all the talent there. You just need a different voice that they're going to listen to and respond to. And that's why I thought at the All-Star break, they really should have made a coaching change. They didn't. And the team just plummeted from there.
And now you're going to hear Lenny Wilkins is coming out of retirement to coach the Utah Jazz.
Right? Don't care. Here he can push him out. Hubie Brown wheeled out on the court, ladies and gentlemen.
87 years old, Hubie Brown leads Utah to NBA championship.
I'll tell you what, I take Hubie Brown no matter how old he is. That guy is a basketball genius.
I love Mike Fratello too, but Mike,
I really was lobbying for Jeff Van Gundy. I thought Jeff Van Gundy was the voice that Utah needed. If you fire Quinn at midseason and you bring in Jeff Van Gundy's not going to accept you not playing defense. He's not going to accept a lack of effort. We've all seen him around the legs of his players trying to keep them from getting – you needed somebody like that to come in and be very passionate and excited. And Jeff has hinted that he's ready to return to the bench. And my God, he is a really energetic and powerful and experienced and inspiring coach for his players. But, they didn't do that, and they lost in the first round.
Well, Jeff Van Gundy, I don't think he needs to go to at least a place that has more than 5 restaurants. And I don't know if Utah's not that place for Jeff. He loves his chicken wings. With with that being said, before we jump into our guest Jared Zero from backsportspage.com, real quick, the Phoenix Suns Dallas Mavericks series. You're down in Dallas, so you sort of got the vibe of what was going on down there during the series. I think we could call the Phoenix Suns Game 7 performance the biggest choke job in NBA history, because that was atrocious. 40 points at one point they were down by.
Yeah, it was a stunning defeat. The Mavs had a great defensive. Hey, due credit to Jason Kidd and his staff, because Jason Kidd was not, when he came here, I had a lot of doubts about him as a head coach. And he has shown us this season in Dallas how much he has grown and learned. I think some of the off-the-court stuff he learned to put aside. Some of those were very public, but he seems to have matured as a coach. One of my friends who's a front office guy in the NBA who had him as the head coach at one point said that he's a savant. He's an absolute savant, as he was as a player. We were talking about him this week. The issue was he was allowing his drinking and various other things to
his vices.
Yes, his vices were clouding his vision. But in LA, under Frank Vogel, he learned to be a little more focused and tune out some of the other stuff and focus on the job. I love Frank Vogel as a coach, by the way. And so Jason Kidd emerged from the experience with Frank Vogel's staff and the Lakers staff to be ready. He came to Dallas with a different, ready to turn a page. His defensive schemes are phenomenal. His offensive schemes are phenomenal. After watching almost the same team with Rick Carlisle in the playoffs last year, the primary difference being Dinwiddie instead of Kristaps Porzingis, it's a totally different team. I mean, the schemes are totally different. You see, Jason Kidd has an ability to actually make in-game adjustments, which Carlisle, I think he gave up. Not that he couldn't. He hasn't done it for many times over the years. But I think he gave up on it with this squad. And J. Kidd came in, and this squad makes adjustments. It was something to watch. The way they played, the way they defended Booker in particular in that last game. Devin Booker was a complete non-factor. And that's just astounding.
Well, here's the other part of it, too. And I also want you to think about it like this. You had Jason Kidd make his coaching debut with the Brooklyn Nets right after he retired.
But Lawrence Frank was trying to be the head coach there. That was a real...
He was trying to be the head coach, but that's not a smart decision. That's like not... you and I both knew that wasn't going to work.
I thought in Summer League, where Lawrence Frank was Kidd's lead assistant, and Lawrence was basically doing all the coaching, and Kidd was sort of off to the side, not really sure how to tell Lawrence, look,
stop what you're doing.
And that was it's hard when you're a first year coach and you got a veteran guy who's been a head coach, and you just stepped off the court. You got to learn that dynamic.
Well, here's the thing, though. So he went to Brooklyn. He was just retired, and he was coaching guys he went to war with.
Yeah.
Or war against, I mean.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's a hard sell. In my eyes, you can't tell Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Joe Johnson, and Darren Williams, hey, we just played you last year. Now I'm going to be telling you what to do.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way. So when he went to Milwaukee and now his current situation in Dallas, he was coaching some of these kids who looked up to him.
Yeah.
When they were growing up. And I think that's a major difference, because when you have that perspective of, okay, here's a guy who I grew up watching and I looked up to, and now he's coaching me, I'm going to listen a little bit more than to someone I used to prepare and play against.
Yeah, and the same thing's true in Dallas. There's nobody here old enough to.
Yeah, I guarantee you, Luka grew up watching Jason Kidd back in the day. Yeah. So I just think there's something with that. Look, Phoenix's choke job here in Game 7 was awful. I actually felt bad for their fan base, because there's people who paid a lot of money for those tickets, and that was the worst thing since clam ice cream. That's
Since Dallas in that first round collapse to the Golden State Warriors. Remember, Don Nelson was coaching the Warriors and knew exactly how to defend Dirk. Used all those smaller defenders, Baron David, swarmed him, and knew that the Mavs couldn't do anything if you take Dirk out of the game.
I think there's the only thing that's possibly worse than that was being a member of the Seattle Supersonics falling to Denver in the first round, because that was the first time. Yeah,
well, that was before that. Yeah, the most recent bad time was, but yeah, Mutombo on the floor kissing the. Yeah, that was. Oh, and that Seattle team was so good too.
Yeah, they were great.
Yeah.
Remember Kendall Gill came on the show? He's like, I'm not going to point any fingers.
Was that our first show? Wasn't that our first show?
Yeah,
the first Hardwood Huddle?
Yeah, it was and Kendall. Remember, Kendall said, look, we're not going to tell you his name, but we'll just call him Larry, and this other guy, Juan, weren't getting along in the locker room. Right? I'm not going to mention their names. But
I'm not saying their names are Gary and right.
Yeah, that's right. Larry Ayton and Juan Samp.
Right.
All right. And the final series in the second round was the Boston Celtics and the Milwaukee Bucks. And what better time to a better time to bring in Jared Zero from backsportspage.com. He's our Boston affiliate out there. Mr. Zero, I know your eyes are going to the left to see what's going on with Boston and Miami. So the first thing we have to clear up, because I called Jared out on this morning. We have a Back Sports Page group chat, and I told Jared on the phone that if the Celtics lose game one, he owes me 15 push-ups. So he didn't. So he just posted the video on our chat of him doing the push-ups, but he did not explain why he was doing the push-ups. So now I'm calling him out and explaining to everybody he did 15 push-ups because I told him that Miami Heat were going to win game one.
You did say Miami was going to win that game. I was confident in the Boston Celtics. And, when we had talked, it was before the news of Al Horford being out, right? So I think that had a big impact on the game, especially with a person like Al and a player like Smart when they're not with you, right? Like Smart's on the sideline. He's not out on the floor battling with these guys. So when those two kind of figureheads of this team, especially Al not even being on the sideline, aren't there to calm you down, we see what happened in the third quarter. So yes, Randy was correct. I will give you your praise. It's not happening again, probably. I still say Celtics in 6.
Well, the thing is, the Heat are awfully banged up. Obviously, Marcus Smart was a short-term thing. He's back for game 2. Al Horford, he's back for game 2. The Celtics are full speed, and they've got a lot of depth and a lot of talent. We talked about the Celtics before the season started. I really loved the addition of Al Horford for multiple reasons, but I really loved that Kyle Lowry chose Miami. Problem is, he's just not himself. He's injured and may not.
No, he's in his mid 30s. He's in his mid 30s.
Yep.
He's on the tail end of his career.
Yep.
This is his last shot to get a second ring. But before we jump into Miami and Boston, let's go back to Milwaukee and Boston for a minute here. Some of the things that Milwaukee did very well against Boston was the same things I said the Nets had to do against Boston to have a realistic shot in that series for games 3 and 4, which was making Tatum work to get the ball instead of just letting him catch the ball on the wing and then let him start dictating what he's going to do, and also give full court pressure to Marcus Smart, which Smart would end up making a couple of long passes, which caused a couple turnovers, which lead to easy baskets. Now, both of those things happened against Milwaukee. I think I texted Bill during I think it was game 4, when I said I woke up in 2012 because Al Horford just had 24 points. I think that it's
with Atlanta when he was awesome.
Yeah, him, Josh Smith, Mike Bibby. Oh, that team was something else, wasn't it? Woo-hoo! Give me some of that Atlanta Hawk team. But look, at the end of the day, I just didn't think that the Milwaukee Bucks missing Chris Middleton, and then their third, fourth, fifth, and sixth option scoring was sort of by committee. I didn't think they had enough firepower to hang with the Celtics. And I think that was one of those things that just sort of caught up to them in the end. Now, Miami's obviously another story. They do have enough firepower. They can go 1 through 9 on their bench and have guys who can hurt you. But let's finish up with Milwaukee. Jared, what was your impression of the Boston-Milwaukee series besides you doing cartwheels at the end of it?
Honestly, I think I speak for a lot of people when I say this. I think a lot of just basketball fans in general viewed that Celtics-Milwaukee series as probably one of the most exhilarating, if not the most exhilarating series that this playoffs can possibly have. And that's just because of the star power that Giannis has, right? Giannis has that ability just by saying his name to get people to flock to their TV just to watch him, right? So when you put somebody like Jason Tatum versus Giannis, right? And I'll get into this in a second about how I feel going into the NBA Finals, but that is enough to get people, whether they're casual basketball fans, even if they're not fans of either of these teams, to go and watch these games, right? I believe it was the Game 7 of the semifinals was the highest watched semifinals game since 2012 with 7.5 million viewers, right? And that's because of what those kids bring to the table. And personally, I was kind of nervous about Milwaukee, with or without Chris Middleton, right? They're a terrifying team from top to bottom. Pat Connaughton can turn it on whenever he wants. He starts hitting those shots, right? Drew Holiday, same thing. Bobby Portis, right? These are guys that can kill you from beyond the arc, but they're streaky, right? They'll go 2 games and hit all their shots, then they'll go 3 games and not hit anything, right? But having someone as big and as physically, physically demanding as Brook Lopez in the paint makes it hard for the Celtics, right? So it was a tough series. I was pretty nervous, but overall, I think, the Celtics just proved like, hey, you want to play physical, that's fine. We'll prove that we can be just as physical, if not more, and turned out to work in their favor.
Yeah, I think it did. The Celtics, no one has discounted the Celtics. I think Bill and I were sitting there talking before the season started that the Miami Heat were the number 1 seed. And I think we put the Celtics like number 6, right, Bill? That's right around that 5-6 spot.
Yeah, there were a couple teams that really underachieved. Atlanta being, number 1 case. I thought the Celtics would be good, but not great.
Right.
And they've come together. The biggest thing for me out of that Milwaukee-Boston series was that Jason Tatum, who at this point, even though he's a youngish player, sort of thought we'd seen him, like who he was going to be. But playing against Giannis really brought out that on this show we call it Batman versus Robin, right? Is Jason Tatum Batman or is he Robin? There's no question Giannis Antetokounmpo is Batman. There's no question. But Tatum at times has settled to be Robin. And in that Milwaukee series, he definitely showed, hey, I'm the guy. I'm Batman. And that was the thing that was really, to me, that was the difference maker. Obviously, having Chris Middleton out. As soon as I found out Chris Middleton was out, like, there's no way Milwaukee's winning this series. But Tatum stepping up the way he did was really the big difference for Boston.
And I want to go off of what you were just saying, where Tatum, has sometimes settled for being Robin. And now, obviously, I'm a Celtics fan. I'm a little bit biased. I think Tatum is a superstar.
No. No. You're kidding me. Okay, go ahead.
Right. But come on, let's be real. Jason Tatum has solidified himself among the superstars, right? Because he has taken his game to a new level, and he's done it every single season that he's been in the league. And for only being in the league for 4 or 5 years and making it to 3 Eastern Conference Finals, that's pretty damn impressive, right? So Tatum settling to be Robin when needed, I think just shows his maturity level. Yes, he's still a kid. He's 24 years old. And I think that, there are some emotional stuff that he needs to work on. I think that is one of his last hurdles that he needs to work on. But I think knowing that time where he's like, I can't be the guy. Marcus Smart is hitting the shots. We got to get him the ball. He needs to be the leader. Jaylen Brown's hitting shots. He needs to be the leader. Or Al Horford. We saw that in Game 4, right? So having these guys really step up, each and every single one of them, and knowing when to be Batman and when to be Robin, I think just really shows the chemistry this team has. And I think Tatum being able to separate himself from I'm that guy to I can't be that guy, I think is huge. And I think that's a real big step for him in his maturity.
It's also, you wrote this today, talking about what defines a superstar in the NBA. It was a good piece. We kind of collaborated on it. But your idea is very well written, a great idea behind it. But when Randy and I were your age, watching and courtside with the NBA, Batman was Batman. There was no tonight I think I'll play the role of Robin. That just didn't happen. Michael Jordan was never Robin. Hakeem Olajuwon, not ever, not one game was he Robin. Clyde Drexler was never Robin. Let's see, Stockton and Malone were both Batman.
Quick score update for you guys, because I just looked at my TV. It's currently 64-39. Boston.
Yeah, Boston.
Half.
They're at full strength and they're making their statement tonight.
But that also shows how amazingly on how a series can change within one game. After game one, we're sitting there saying, "Oh, no Marcus Smart, no Al Horford." It doesn't matter. The results are going to be the same. Look, this is going to be a heavyweight fight. We all knew Miami and Boston was going to be a heavyweight fight, and we're all going to see it now that Boston's going to get desperate because you don't want to go back to Boston 0-2.
No,
because that pressure of having Boston lost games and again, they lost two games out against Milwaukee in Boston.
This is that's Celtics where you just went up after Boston, it was over.
and something to just capitalize on what Bill was saying before about back in the day, there was no distinction there was no doubting who was Batman, who was Robin on a team. Obviously Jordan, and then we knew what Pippen was. In New York, even though yeah. Well, okay, so let's go Detroit. You knew Isaiah was the man and Joe Dumars was the guy, the second guy. Yep. You knew in Atlanta, even though they didn't really go far, Dominique was the man and Kevin Willis was.
The only reason they didn't go further was because Michael Jordan, if it wasn't for Michael, Dominique Wilkins has 4 or 5 rings.
Look, Bert had Parrish, McHale, and Vinnie Johnson, those guys. And then you said you go down like you
starting 5.
Yeah, Ewing had Starks.
It was magic.
Yeah,
but they had James Worthy, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Byron Scott, AC Green.
So I kind of want to counter you guys, right? And I know you're talking about back when you guys were my age, sitting courtside watching these games.
I'm old.
You guys aren't that old, right?
Thank
but
you.
I want to go back to a few years ago. When LeBron won the ring in the bubble, that a lot of people kind of discredit. I don't. I have my whole thoughts on the bubble that I'll tackle later on. But someone had asked LeBron why he didn't take the last shot of a game that they lost. And granted, they still won the series, but they ended up losing the game. And someone said, well, "You're LeBron. Like, why aren't you taking that last shot?" He said, "Because I trust my teammates." Right. So I think and this goes for anybody, especially in the modern day NBA, where the game is so drastically different than what it was back when Michael Jordan was playing, right? I think that level of selflessness just needs to be there, right? Like, personally speaking, I don't think there should ever be the one guy, right? And I can relate it back to this Eastern Conference semifinals between the Celtics and the Bucks, right? Milwaukee didn't have another guy, right? They had Giannis, and while he had a historic stat line in the 7-game series, it was, I believe the stat line was like 200 points, 100 rebounds, and 50 assists over a course of 7 games, which is absolutely insane. He was the guy, but he didn't have that Robin. He didn't have anybody else that said, "I'm having a bad night. I need somebody else to step up." And yeah, they took 3 games from Boston. It was expected, but it goes to show basketball now is not a one-man sport. It's never been a one-man sport, but
it was 2. It's always been more or less a 2. You need 2 super.
Right. And that's the thing, right? So knowing when to be the guy and when to take that back seat, again, I think that's super important in the playoffs.
The only time I can think of where a team you had to have two superstars, except in 1994, Olajuwon did not have a second superstar. He was so amazing. They just surrounded him with shooters. And that was the Clutch City team. Were we talking about that on earlier today?
Yeah.
Which were the ultimate. The only games they won were elimination games in 94. Yep. If it wasn't
out on my Twitter,
elimination game, they lost, but they won every single elimination game they had. And it was because Hakeem was so good that he could pick out. He drew 5 different. Everyone came in like Hakeem sucked. He's like a black hole. He sucked all the defenders. And then he would pick Robert Horry in the corner for 3, or Mario Elie, the kiss of death against Phoenix, or Kenny Smith. But most teams, even Michael, until he had a second star, Michael wasn't. He could go out and drop 50. They lost all those games early in his career.
Yeah. Take a look when Kobe, after Shaq went to Miami. Yeah. Kobe was scoring 45, 50 points a game, but he only had Lamar Odom with him, and Lamar Odom was too busy with the Kardashians. So
just like Devin Booker.
I interviewed Kobe later in his career, and he said, the thing that he learned was you had to have, if he and Shaq had played together when they were both more mature and understood the value of teammates, they would have played together much more effectively, because by that time they both knew how important having another guy was. But early, and you see this with so many players, the young superstars all want to do it all themselves. It doesn't work. They have to figure that out. You watch them try to figure it out. And then if they figure it out, maybe they get a championship later when they've decided, okay, yes, we need. Even LeBron had to figure out, I need a guy to make the last second shot night in and night out. That's Dwayne Wade.
Because that's not what LeBron was. And one thing you could say about Shaq, though, and you and I have had this discussion, Bill, Shaquille O'Neal, and this is something I still don't understand. I never understood the mentality of double teaming Shaquille O'Neal, because he can score 50 points by being dominant in the paint, but he's not going to win you a game. Shaq was never the guy who was going to win you a game. He was going to have an effect on the game, but Kobe was going to hit that game-winning shot. Rick Fox or Robert Horry was hitting those shots that Shaq was drawing the attention on. That's why I never really understood the double on him and the we have to game plan against Shaq. The real game plan was stopping Kobe and those other shooters. Yeah. You foul Shaq, Shaq's going to the free throw line. That's a win for you. And that was something I never really understood. But when you talk about the pairing of the superstars, and you need to be able to have that. When Shaq got traded from the Lakers and went to the Miami Heat, the first thing he said was, "Hey, Dwayne Wade, we're making you a star now, because I'm going to make you a star, because I'm going to draw this attention, and you're going to have to step up and do it." And he did.
Dwayne was ready.
Yeah, and he did, and he did a great job with it too. Real quick. So obviously we were talking a little bit about this Miami and Boston series. The Mavericks and the Warriors doing their thing last night. Game 1 wasn't much of a game 1 in the second half. Steph Curry looking like Steph Curry was like, "Oh, okay, let me just shoot it from half court. Oh, I didn't think I was going to make it. I'll do it again. All right, cool. Let's do it again. All right, cool."
You're not stopping Steph.
Yeah. Real quick, Bill, and I'll go to Jared with this. I don't see this being much a series. I think this is Warriors in 5, Warriors going back to the NBA Finals, and we'll see what's going on from there. Your take on this.
I think that the Warriors have a unique ability. The Mavericks are basically trying to be the Warriors, right? Because the Mavericks have 0 inside game. Not any. The worst starter of all the starting centers in the NBA, the Mavericks have the worst. But that's not their game. That is not their game. Their game is perimeter oriented, and they're very, very good at it. And they have a 3-guard lineup. When they made that deal to get Spencer Dinwiddie, who I told you at the time the Brooklyn Nets don't need Kyrie Irving, they have Spencer Dinwiddie. And Dinwiddie is 10 times the player Kyrie is, given that he's going to play every night and not every other night, or not just the road games, or not just the games that aren't in whatever city, or blah, blah, blah. Spencer Dinwiddie's going to bring it. And he's been amazing for the Mavericks since the All-Star break. They've been a different team. We saw him. He was huge in the last series, beating Phoenix. But here's the thing. Golden State's been doing it longer, and they're better at it. They've won championships doing it. And they have 3 different guys they can put on Luka who are all effective in different ways. And if Andrew Wiggins is going to play the way he played in game 1, don't think he's going to do it 7 times, but he might do it 4 times. He wants to pick up full court, and he's going to play full court all night. Okay, if he does that 4 times, then Luka's out of the game. Then you have Klay Thompson. If Luka's on the perimeter, Klay Thompson, one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. And then you have Draymond Green, who's an astounding defender and always has been. He's small and he's kind of thinned down the last couple of years. He's not the bulky guy, but he can go out and stop Luka in different ways. So the Warriors have 3 different ways to stop Luka. And then if you're Dallas, you have to hope that you don't shoot 10% from 3-point range like you did in game 1. They're not going to shoot that bad. They had a lot of good looks that just didn't go. Dallas is not going to shoot that poorly the entire series. The only question is, will they shoot that poorly 4 times? And if they do, that's 4 wins for Golden State. But I think the Warriors have been there. They've done that. They're healthy. Everybody's healthy at the right time. And they are uniquely, Dallas is the team they are uniquely built to defeat. And I'm impressed as hell that Dallas got this far. I think they're going to be very competitive. I don't think we're looking at a 5 or 6 game series. It may go 7. It wouldn't surprise me at all. But Golden State has the guys who have been there and done that, who can counter everything Jason Kidd can do. Steve Kerr is one of the greatest coaches in the league. Absolutely phenomenal. And I think that's how Golden State beats them, is they're better. Dallas is built to play Golden State's game, and Golden State is better at it.
So to follow up what you were just saying, Bill, with Dallas being competitive against Golden State, right, where there's not going to be a repeat of game 1 with them only shooting 10% from 3, right? No, I agree with you. I don't think that's going to happen again. And it kind of, for lack of a better term, was really annoying waking up, this morning, going on Twitter, watching ESPN and seeing all these analysts and fans freaking out. Celtics are down 0-1. Dallas is down 0-1. These teams just played a game 7 the night before, 2 nights before. They're playing off of a day's rest. Of course they're going to be tired. Of course they're going to come out flat, right? And to kind of tie into how Randy wanted to transition into going to the Celtics-Miami series, right? They gave it everything they had in the first half, but they were out of gas. They were out of gas in the second half. Mm-hmm. So it happens. Same thing with Dallas, right? Luka was being bullied last night, right? So he couldn't get anything going. And it's because these teams are tired. And I think it's way too early for any fan base of any of these 4 teams to really solidify a series is over or not.
And here's the thing about Luka. Your piece about superstars today, Luka is a superstar. Luka he may be the best player in the NBA. He's certainly a top 2 or 3. He's phenomenal. You don't watch a lot of Dallas games, maybe you don't know. Luka is amazing.
Luka is very, very good.
Watching, and he's going to see how they switched and how Draymond guarded him and how Klay guarded him and how Andrew Wiggins guarded him. And Luka's going to figure that out. Yeah. I have this for you. Luka's going to figure. It's not going to work 4 times.
No,
it won't. And it might work in game 2, maybe. But by the time you get back to Dallas, Luka's going to have their defense completely figured out, and Steve Kerr is going to have to come up with something else. And that's what's going to be fun to watch, is how Luka Doncic says, okay, you did this to me. I'm going to completely – Olajuwon did this. So the way that they guarded him and the way that he – and, of course, I'm from Houston. Granted, I studied Olajuwon. I've been to his house. There's no one better to me. But the way Hakeem studied the defense and found another way to reinvent his game so that the defense you thought you could use against him didn't work, Luka is that kind of guy. He's going to study tape. He's going to come back with something else in his playbook that makes it so you have to adjust. And that's what's going to be the biggest challenge for Golden State in the series, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I 100% agree.
Guys, right here on the Hardwood Huddle, courtesy of backsportspage.com. Randy Zeller, Bill Ingram, along with Jared Zero from our Boston affiliate. I guess that's the best way of saying it. So, guys, let's close up shop here. Let's give our predictions for the NBA Finals. Who's going to be there at the end? I'm still, just despite Jared, I'm going to say the Miami Heat versus the Golden State Warriors. Bill, what do you got?
Well, I think if Kyle Lowry was healthy and 100%, I would stick with Miami. That's who we picked in preseason. But I think the fact that Boston is 100% and Miami is not, I think that gives Boston an edge. I think it goes at least 6 games, but I will take Boston. In the West, I still like Golden State. I got to tell you, it's because you have the coaching, you have the guys who have won multiple rings, and you have Andrew Wiggins playing in a way that it's like that switch has flicked in his head, and he's figured things out, which a lot of players don't do at this point in their careers. And I really do think Golden State comes out, even though, full disclosure, I've covered 1,000 games in Dallas. I would love to see Dallas in the finals. I think it's Golden State.
For me, I obviously have to go Celtics, and that's not the fan in me talking. I've been studying this season probably more than I have in past seasons. And to Bill's point, the Celtics are, if they're not 100, they're pretty close to it. Smart, I'm still iffy on his foot, but he looks great out there. Rob Williams, same with his knee. So, yeah, I'm going to take Celtics in 6. Just because the Heat haven't proven they're a great road team this playoffs. And I think it's going to be really difficult for them to win in Boston. But that's assuming, obviously, the Celtics can take one from Miami, which they've proven they're a great road team. The Celtics have, and so I'm giving the edge to Celtics for there. I'm also taking Golden State out of the West. I would love to see Dallas. I think if we got a Jason Tatum, Luka Doncic sort of rivalry similar to the old Celtics-Lakers rivalry, except you put Tatum and Luka at the forefront of that, I think that sells tickets for years to come. So I would love to see a Celtics-Dallas Mavericks finals, but Golden State, again, Bill, you kind of hit the nail on the head. They have the experience. They have the health. They're just on fire.
Yep.
And one last thing, too. One thing we did not discuss was the draft lottery that happened over the other day. And let's really quickly go through the order. The Cleveland Cavaliers are the 14th pick. The Charlotte Hornets 13. The Clippers 12, but that's going to the Oklahoma City Thunder because the Oklahoma City Thunder seems to have 787 picks over the next 3 years. The New York Knicks, again, did not win the lottery, and they are the 11th pick. The Washington Wizards are 10. The San Antonio Spurs 9. The Lakers pick that was for the Anthony Davis trade goes to New Orleans, and they have the 8th spot. The Portland Trailblazers 7. Indiana Pacers 6. The Detroit Pistons.
I think Randy cut out on us.
Yeah, he freezes some.
Yeah, it's sunk for them. The Sacramento Kings move up to the 4th spot. The Houston Rockets down to the number 3 spot. Oklahoma City with another one of their 437 picks there with the 2nd pick in the draft. And then the number 1 pick goes to the Orlando Magic. Guys, quick thoughts on that. Jared, start with you.
I think if Chet Holmgren's not the number 1 overall pick for any of these top 5 teams, I think they're doing it wrong. That's just my only thought about the draft. I think a 7-foot big man who can shoot the ball as efficiently as Chet can, I think any team is dumb not to take him first.
Yep, I just think that'll be Houston at number 3, even if he's there, because they've already got Christian Wood can do the same thing. Alperin is an interesting center. I think they go power forward, and there are 2 intriguing power forwards. Either going to go 2 or 3. If I'm Houston, that's what's missing. You want another somebody who can be a force in the paint, and I think the Rockets are uniquely positioned at number 3 to get just the guy they need.
I honestly think that the be very interesting, but Bill, you and I have already argued so many times about what they should be doing with.
There it goes again.
It's his basement, man.
Yeah, I get it.
You faded out, Randy. We missed something.
All right, Bill. I don't know, but can you hear me now, guys?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. So Bill and I have already discussed so many times what they should be doing with the NBA draft and the G League. So in general, I think Orlando is going to have some decisions to make. I think that they should go get the most experienced player out there, because right now they need guys who can play. They cannot draft on potential. They need guys to go in there who's going to be able to play right now. I think that's what the key's going to be.
Yeah, Oklahoma City has lots of young players.
Yeah, yes, they do. Yes, they do. And plus, they have 900 other picks that they have to do.
Gilgeous Alexander, I tell you what, if you don't know, you better ask somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you guys coming out to the Hardwood Huddle, and everyone who's been checking us out tonight. Thanks for giving us a little bit of time of your week. You can download the show, all of our shows on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio. We're pretty much everywhere. Our home base is backsportspage.com. Hey, Bill, where can they find you?
Well, on Twitter, it's at the Rocket Guy. We're going to talk Astros. We're going to talk basketball. We're going to talk politics. You follow me. We'll talk about whatever everybody's talking about. But no MAGA, please. Just leave that. Just go somewhere else. And, of course, if I write about basketball, it's at Hardwood Huddle. And my personal blog is ishmaelslegacy.com.
Mr. Zero, where can they find you, my friend?
As always, you guys can find me at JournalistJ0 on Twitter. Shout out to Celtics Nation on Twitter. I recently had a boost in my following. I went from, I think it was like 150 some followers on Sunday to over 400 just within the last few days. So again, shout out Celtics Nation, Celtics fans. Similar to Bill, all I do is talk sports. I talk basketball. I talk Celtics. I'll talk Patriots. Sports in general, I love to talk about it. So that's where you guys can find me.
Cool. And of course, you can find me at Randy BSP, Instagram, Twitter, backsportspage.com, and I host about 437 podcasts. So you can, so you can just type in my name on Spotify, and I'll show up like 900 places. That's how it works. All right, guys. So we will try to be back next week. Bill, I know we say this all the time. We'll try and make this happen next week.
You know what, Randy? Don't even worry about it. I can take your place. I think Bill and I can lock it down on the Hardwood Huddle.
Well, I think what we should do is have a podcast first, and all of a sudden we'll start showing up on like random podcasts. So like we'll show up on Woj's podcast. Like all of a sudden Woj will be like, "Who are you guys?" And I'll be like, "Look, we're Hardwood Huddle."
Don't worry about it. Like,
Woj doesn't get those text messages from the teams telling him the breaking news. Does he have any analytical abilities on his own?
I don't
think
so.
You get these. You know who everybody is in the NBA. You don't know who I am.
My God. Man. Do you know how much fun that would be to watch, all of a sudden, like seriously go into like a multiverse of like podcasting and just watch Woj's head spin around in a circle and all of his text messages start going out to all of us? It'd be absolutely amazing. All of a sudden, I'll be getting insiders and it'll be like different general managers. Woj, don't tell anybody. Meanwhile, Bill's like, did you see what they just sent Woj?
Woj bomb.
Woj bomb. Boom. Well, all right, guys. So we will see everybody here next week on the Hardwood Huddle. For Bill Ingram, Jared Zero, I'm Randy Zelia. We will see you next time here in the Huddle.
Thanks, everybody.